All right, and welcome to another edition of the Black and Gold Report. We're on the eve of the ACHA season here for Oakland and Ohio, and we are joined by Ryan Boyd from the Ohio Bobcats. Ryan, how's it going?
Good. It's a pleasure to be back. Another season where both you and I get to do some ACHA hockey. It's exciting, man.
So first things first, what are your overall thoughts on last night's ACHA preview show?
I enjoyed it. I always enjoy it. Those guys at Liberty, you know them pretty well, just like I do. I have a lot of respect for those guys. They have a beautiful campus, really nice setup out there, and I've had the pleasure of being down there a couple of times and joining them for broadcasts, and I know how much hard work goes into that and how much preparation there is prior to that event. And I like all the things they talked about. I don't know if I necessarily agreed with everything that was discussed, and that's kind of the fun part of it, but yeah, it was a great show, and it's great for the league, Corey. It's great to get the word out and to get people listening. I know there were a triple-digit number of people watching at any given time last night, and that's what the league needs. What
do you think about some of the talk about burying the GLCHL conference? What do you think about that?
Oh man, I was surprised that was a piece of conversation last night. I understand where it came from, I guess. Last year wasn't maybe the most dominant of years for the league, but you're talking about a league that it's in a talent-rich area. You're always going to have great hockey players out in that area. You're always going to have great coaches in that area as well, because they want to coach in places where there are great players. So schools like Oakland and Adrian and Davenport and so on and so forth, those schools are always going to be good, even if they have a down year here or there. It's without a doubt in my mind that they're going to be competitors for a championship.
And then who do you see kind of as the favorites this year in the conference? I know Adrian lost a ton of people, so that's kind of been the talking point here, but new coach over there, and it seems like he's doing a good job so far.
Yeah, I think so. I think Adrian's always kind of an X factor for me, kind of an interesting team for me. I never get to see them much, and I don't get to see broadcasts. I don't get to see really anything from them until national tournament time, but they're always, like you said, a good coach team. So I think Adrian will be in the picture. Certainly, they're obviously pretty high in the rankings in the preseason. Not that the preseason rankings really mean much, but they'll be in the picture. I think that Davenport's going to be very strong. I know they lost Wendecker, one of the better defensive players in the country, but I think that they do a good job of reloading over there. And I think that Oakland as well, and I'm not just saying this for the sake of the program here, I think Oakland's going to be really tough. I think that for them, and I think you agree with me, I think it comes down to the goaltending. If Chuck can have a stellar year and be the goaltender that a lot of people there believe he can be, I think that Oakland is a team that could be the favorite, and they could emerge as the best team in that conference. And of course, you can't leave out a team like Michigan Dearborn or a team like Eastern Michigan that both are quiet, and I don't know if they can win the league, but they certainly have some potential.
Yeah, I mean, in goal, Corey Hirschchuk, and they have Munoz back there as well. It's going to be interesting to see how they kind of, for Hirschchuk not have him get so much time. But other than that, we'll see how that goes. And, looking around, was there anything surprising in the rankings that stuck out to you?
It's a good question, Corey. It really is. One that really surprised me was Navy. They're still up there very high, and that's not to disrespect that unit. I know they had a really good team, but if I'm not mistaken, their goaltender, who was outstanding, I believe he graduated. I also believe that one of the top point scorers in the ACHA's history also graduated from that school. So unless they reloaded in a way that I'm not aware of, that was surprising. I was also surprised that Illinois and Lindenwood were fairly far down in the polls. I think 15 and 16 for them, or somewhere in that range. Both those teams had really good off seasons. And I've been in contact with folks over there, and they're going to be really tough as long as everything gels together. So I think they'll certainly move up pretty quickly. And then I was pleased to see that Iowa State, Robert Morris, Illinois, both those teams stay in the top five. I think they're both very quietly very dangerous, and two of the teams that could certainly knock off a powerhouse like Arizona State.
Yeah, we'll see Robert Morris, Illinois out there in Chicago in November. So that should be very interesting. I know they put a spanking on the Grizzlies last season, and Oakland's going to want some revenge there. Now, they were talking about recruits, and they were doing like the recruiting list, and the whole time I was thinking, now should you and I just go out every summer, and when someone releases something, put a 1 through 5 stars on there, or 0 stars, as you get in some of the college football rankings. But do we really know? I mean, to be perfectly honest, do we really know anything about any of these recruits?
No, I don't think so. And don't get me wrong, I actually like that segment. I think it's a good idea. In theory, it's a great idea. But you're right. The problem is that these guys come from so many different leagues. They come from so many different systems, and they're trying to fit into new environments and new teams and new coaching staffs. And year after year, Corey, you and I see this. We see players that are no names in theory or on paper. They're guys that shouldn't excel in the ACHA, and they emerge and they're top point scorers on teams. So I don't think you can predict who's going to be great, who's going to have the best class, so on and so forth. I know that it also comes down to how teams advertise their classes. I mean, you look at a team like Arizona State. If you follow them on social media, you would think that they had recruited the Stanley Cup champions from the past year. And listen, I know they're a good team. I know that they're going to be really tough, but we don't know if that's just press or if that's the truth. So I think you got to give it a few weeks before you determine which group of rookies are really going to make the biggest impact.
Yeah, I know from our position here, since Gordy Shuffler took over as head coach, we kind of have just gone in that little bit of a different direction in terms of we're gonna release all the recruits kind of at the end of the period instead of doing it kind of one by one, and really not overdo it with. If we have somebody, I'll take an example of Matt Seidel as a kid that when he walked into our camp, guys were asking me, is that Matt Seidel who just signed up? They were really super excited. I know he was mentioned as one of the top prospects on the show, but when we sent our thing out, we didn't, blow him up in any aspect like that just because, writing it, I really don't know. And, it's from what I hear, you talk to people, and it's one of those things, and that's certainly something I know you do. I do as well, and I'm sure that a lot of people around the league do, but until you see them with your own eyes, it's hard to really make a judgment. And even coming up this weekend, it's really hard to make a judgment. But who do you guys have this weekend?
We start with John Carroll at home this weekend.
Okay. We got Kent State at Kent State. So both these two teams should, if they are who we think they are, and if they're playing the way they should play, should come away with some wins, right? Is that what we're thinking here?
Yeah, for sure. There's no question. I know that for Ohio in particular, Corey, and this may be the same for Oakland, I'm not sure. You'd have to refresh my memory, but last year Ohio was really disappointed. Opening weekend last year was the first weekend for Jonathan Sheridan, who was then the coach, and they hosted John Carroll in that weekend as well. And John Carroll not only won on opening night, but they almost won both games. And the Cats took them really lightly. They really did not have a impressive performance at all. The guys were really taken aback by their performance, and it really set the tone for a slow start to the season. They were then swept by Liberty, and it was just a really, really slow start. And I've talked to a lot of the players. I've talked to some of the captains on the team, and they've said, listen, it's not going to be the same. We take John Carroll as seriously as any team on our schedule. We are focused. We don't care about rankings or any of that stuff. It's all about night number one, then night number two, and taking care of business. And I think that for Oakland and for Ohio, I think it'll be that same mentality. And I imagine, while there may be some parity throughout the course of the games, I think that both teams will have, they'll take care of business with relative ease.
Now, I know we talked about this a little last season when we started. Who has the most pressure this season? What team that has to go out and has to do some damage? And I know that we had mentioned Arizona State last year, and then they won the national championship. I really think this year you have to look at Liberty. They have all the resources. Everything's there. They have to make a deep run at the D1 level at some point here, don't you think?
Oh, man, you read my mind. No question. And again, I said it, I really like Liberty. I think, like you said, they have a lot of resources, and it's a tremendous hockey program. But here's the other reality, and these guys at Liberty will even agree to this, Corey. Not many teams around the league like Liberty. They don't like those guys on the team. They don't like playing against them for whatever reason. It's not usually talked about in much detail, but I know that it's true for our guys here. I know it's true for a lot of the CSCHL teams. So when you build that type of reputation where teams don't like playing against you, they don't like traveling to your barn, and you have the resources that they have, you got to perform. You just have to. That's just the nature of sports. So for Liberty, as they go year after year, being in the top 5 or the top 10, and then being eliminated early in the tournament, the pressure just builds and builds and builds, and eventually they've got to make a run, or it's going to have some negative consequences for sure.
Right, and I know one of the things, and I'm going to get in a lot of trouble for this, but whatever. One of the things too is just going down there. The games officiated differently, and I know I've heard from numerous folks around the league that have even said, yeah, I mean that's kind of been their Achilles heel, so to speak, at the national tournament. They're used to one style at home, and then they're on this neutral ice, and it's just different. And sometimes those calls that they get down there, they just aren't happening. Those 5-on-3s or whatever power plays coming into that third period when they need a big boost is not happening. And so that's kind of been one of the other things. And I think the other issue too is sometimes with the national tournament not being really close to them, they lose that energy from not having all their fans being able to travel. But tremendous program, love the program, love Coach Handy. I think he's one of the best coaches in the league, and for sure they have all the resources available to them, and that would be something if they're able to pull it off here soon. But besides Arizona State, who do you think, because that's the easy answer, is ASU, who do you think has the best shot to win the national championship?
It's a really good question. I think that Iowa State is going to be in the picture simply because of the goaltender that they have. I've been on record saying this year after year. I said it last year after they beat Ohio in the quarterfinals of the tournament. Matthew Cooper is as good as it gets. I think he's better than any goaltender in the ACHA. I don't think he gets the credit he deserves, even though people talk about him. They just don't talk about him enough. He is literally that good. So I think that Iowa State is easily a competitor just because he is in the picture. I don't know how good they are around him, but we've seen in the past teams can win championships with just one guy. We've seen with Selenchuk was great for Minot State, S.J. Broke for Delaware a few years back. Not that those teams didn't have other players, but the point remains. If you have a good goalie, you can do it. I think also, I think Ohio is going to be an interesting team to follow this year. I don't know how deep they'll go, but I know that the atmosphere around here, Corey, is very, very different, and it's very, very encouraging. And with as many guys as they brought back, I think that they could be a sneaky, very scary team come tournament time. And then also, you can't forget Oklahoma. Oklahoma brings back a lot from last year, and they're a team out in that Wild West that every year is competitive, and one of these years they're going to make a run, and I think this could be one of those years that they compete.
Right, that was going to be another team that I mentioned in terms of having to, at one of these years, get a breakthrough and win a championship or go severely deep. So I was going to ask you about Ohio's chances, but you kind of answered those for us. So I'll throw this out since a lot of Oakland people are listening to this. What do you think of Oakland's chances to go and win the national championship or go deep this year are?
Well, I think it goes back to what I said before, Corey.
First
I think that it's goaltending that's going to make a difference. If the goaltending situation in Oakland is significantly better than it was a year ago, I truly believe that Oakland has the offensive potential to beat anybody. I think they can. And you know that I have a great deal of respect for a lot of the offensive options that you guys have.
Billy Ballant.
So, yeah, that's right. Billy Ballant. Hopefully he's listening and he can tweet at me or something. But, yeah, I think it's a great offensive team. I just think the question mark at times has been the goaltending. And I know that sometimes you say that I get on the goaltending a bit too much.
Yeah.
It might be true, but at the end of the day, the teams that win it all, you and I both know, have that X-factor goaltender. So if Oakland gets that, they're going to be in the picture, no question.
Right. I think you might be a little too hard on Corey Hirschchuk there. But, I think he's a terrific goaltender, and it's not many people I'd trade him for in a one-on-one if this was an NHL 15 franchise mode. I want some first-round picks coming back if I'm dealing him. But that's beside the point here. But, just want to quickly wrap this up here, and what matchups are you looking forward to the most this year that you guys have?
Good question. We have a really tough schedule. We play 30 of our 36 games that are already scheduled, so not including tournaments and so on and so forth, but 30 of the 36 that are scheduled are against ranked teams or teams that are ranked in the preseason poll. So some really tough opponents. Ohio against Oklahoma will be a showdown at Bird Arena. That should be a blast. Our guys traveled to Liberty. Last time we were at Liberty, our guys, the quote they used was that they felt like they were disrespected. So I know they're real excited to go back there and make a point, or at least hopefully make a point. And then I always get excited for the big rivalry we have with Illinois. Whenever we play Illinois, it's always a blast, whether it be at Bird Arena or out at Dare Ice, out there in Champaign. That's a fun rivalry. So we have 4 games between those two teams. So I'd say those 3 opponents are the ones that I've circled, but many more good games beside that.
Right. And then I would just say this: summer flew by. The season's here already. Final question for you: when the coaches poll switched over to the computer in October, because last year there were just significant changes, who do you think makes the biggest jump, and who do you think makes the biggest fall?
Man, that is a really good question. I didn't expect that one. You threw a curveball at me. I think that the biggest jump could potentially be Lindenwood if everything comes together and the recruits are as good as I think they'll be. There's a lot of question marks. Believe me, I could be totally wrong, but I think they're scary. I think they're real scary. So if that comes together, I think Lindenwood could jump up into the top 10 for sure. I also think it's possible one of the teams in the Great Lakes League, I think they could make a pretty high jump if one of them gets on a run here early on, whether it be Oakland, Davenport, whoever it may be. And in terms of falling, I wouldn't be terribly surprised if Adrian has a slow start just because of everything that's changed with them, so they could fall. And I also, like I said before, I don't mean to keep hammering these guys because I really like the program, but I wouldn't be surprised if Navy falls to the very bottom of the poll pretty quickly.
Man, oh man, you're going to get banned from Navy, Ryan. I'm going to get kicked out of Liberty, you're going to get banned from Navy, and I don't know what we're going to do. We're going to do this show again, I guess. All right, Ryan, well, good luck to you guys tomorrow, and you guys are very fortunate to have Sean Hogan. I do want to mention that as the new head coach there. I had a couple years working with him, and I wouldn't be where I am right now, still with this program here at Oakland, if it wasn't for Sean Hogan giving me an opportunity. So I just want to make sure that I say that, and I know he's going to do the same thing for you, and he certainly learned a ton since I last worked under him. And see you guys at Nationals, man.
Yep, sounds good, buddy. As always, I appreciate the time, boy.
All right, thank you, Ryan. That's Ryan Boyd joining us here on the Black and Gold Report on OaklandHockey.org.